today, tonight, this evening, or today, wherever you are, we've got a special episode of PICARDEST, the show that reviews the newest episode of Picard in its third season and final season. And last night was the debut of episode 8. I've already forgotten the title. I've already forgotten that. Surrender. Surrender, my favorite song by Cheap Trick. I should have remembered that. Surrender. Episode 8 was called Surrender of Picard. Now, our episode today is called Joe Townsel Was Right About Everything. Welcome to PICARDEST. Right now on Picard, and here's the man who was right about everything. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, novelist, horror writer, maven of all things cool. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Joe Townsel. Mr. Townsel, oh my gosh, you must have been watching last night's episode, Surrender, and I'm saying episode 8. It's part 8.
Part 8, yes.
I love they're doing. I love they're calling each episode a part because it is quite a big story. And you were right about so many things. I'm not even going to start listing them. We're going to have to mention them either as we go or in the down and dirty conversation section of the show. However you want to do it, you're the one who's right. So, Joe, I leave it up to you.
Well, thank you, John. And first of all, to everybody out there, live long and prosper as always. And I'm going to be very honest about something right off the bat.
I just want to throw in that yesterday was First Contact Day.
Yesterday was First Contact Day, which it turns out is really synonymous with Frontier Day.
Okay. That answers the question that we had a couple weeks back, which was like, what exactly is Frontier Day? So it's the extension of the frontier for the Federation or the establishment. Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please go, Joe.
No, not at all. And just to confirm that point, the reason this Frontier Day in the show is so significant is that it commemorates the 250th year of Starfleet generally. But I think behind the scenes, what I heard was that they were reluctant to use First Contact Day in reference in this season of Picard because the synth attack on Mars, Utopia Planitia, happened also on First Contact Day. So they wanted to differentiate between the two things.
Wow.
Although it's pretty much the same.
Right. Date. Right. But they are very different, significant dates in terms of the Star Trek story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing I was going to admit to, and I think we'll just cover it as it comes up, whether probably in the down and dirty and maybe somewhat in the beats, but I'm anxious to hear what I was right about.
Really? You weren't watching it going, I called that.
Well, let me put this way. I guess my self-impression was more like, I don't recall being wrong about anything. So maybe that's the same thing. Not yet, anyway.
That's some good hosting right there. That is some good controversial throwing down the gauntlet. That is some good hosting, sir.
So thank you. And I think the way to go about it then is, why don't you list them out when we get to the down and dirty? And I say, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, now the pressure's on because, you obviously are a great writer, great published writer. I do a little writing on my own. I want to have at least 3 of them. I know there's that one. Oh shoot. I think there's that one. Okay, so Easter eggs for later in the show. Oh, it's Easter
Cool.
weekend coming up too. Easter eggs will be the things that I'm trying to remember through my sleep medicine haze that I had watching the episode, though I really enjoyed it, I have to say. Oh, and there's another thing you were super right about. Okay, so I have at least 3 things that you were super right about. And I'm sure there's going to be many more coming up as we get into the granular, the details. Because
Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure those will jog my memory too. Yeah, like I said, I don't have an impression that I was just totally off the mark, but of course, some things haven't been addressed just yet. And
right.
we're at this point, anything that would certain theories are just not gonna make any sense if they introduce them at this late in the game, but we'll see. Yeah.
And that's an interesting part of storytelling, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, this has been, as I've been really harping on in the last few weeks, this has been a part by part, chapter by chapter story. We haven't zoomed all over the universe through time and space as we did in, say, season 2.
Right.
There was a lot of space travel in season 1. This one very much about this ship and that ship and you know, and really like a very tense storyline. So not a lot of ground has been covered, if you will, but a lot of emotional ground has been covered. A lot of mysteries have been presented that are very painfully not being answered quickly. Slowly, maybe. Yes, but oh my gosh, so much going on.
Yeah, I think I called it a week or two ago, the ultimate bottle show.
Yes, which is fascinating. Now, for anybody who doesn't have a quick idea of a bottle show, what's your definition of a bottle show, Joe?
Oh, very simply that for budgetary reasons, the entire thing takes place on existing sets.
Yes, that's interesting. And much more specific than what I had in my head. So I'm glad I asked you. Because I always like to think of the bottle shows too as kind of existing on their own. They're not usually a big part of continuity usually. Although I suppose I could come up with a lot of examples where they were. You know, Deep Space Nine did the Dominion War. It lasted so long, like 2.5 years, I think, like a very long time. And there would be like little chapters, little episodes of it that were bottle episodes, I would say.
Well, that of course what we're presenting here is both the behind the scenes real life definition as well as the in-universe fictional aspect. And a great example of, well, I'll give you in TNG a good example and a bad example of a bottle show. Bad example was Shades of Grey, which was, thank God, TNG's only clip show.
Yes.
And that thing took place entirely in sickbay with 3 regulars.
Right.
The best example of a bottle show in TNG I can think of was the Drumhead.
Right.
When we had yet another Mad Admiral was basically trying to, and convict this largely innocent crewman of espionage and treason and so forth.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good episode. Oh, I got to watch that one again. Let's get down to the nitty and the gritty of this episode. Let's also say hello to Craig Robinson. Hello, Craig. Thanks for joining us. Get the LLAP going for our good friend from across the pond, Mr. Craig Robinson. We are looking at the episode of Surrender. It is part 8 of season 3 of Picard, which of course we here like to call PICARDEST.
That's right.
This was directed by Deborah Kampmeyer. I do not know Deborah.
And that's a new name to me.
I do not see a writer's credit. That's unusual. You know, I think I'm going to take a look at who Deborah is. One of the things you were right about, I just have to say it right off the bat. I can't tease it any longer. You had said that you had heard, correct me if I'm wrong, you had said you had heard that this episode and the previous episode, so part 7 and part 8, really went together.
I see where you're going with that one. Yes, and I think that absolutely turned out to be true.
I watched this episode as much as you and I had certain feelings of you know last week
Last
for
week.
part 7.
Yeah.
I kept watching part 8 going, oh man, this just pays off part 7. Oh, that just paid off, and that just paid off, and that just paid off. There was something that I didn't even know was a story cooking up that ended up being the story between the 2 episodes that just immediately paid off. And I was worried we were going to have to wait weeks for some of these things to pay off. So lots of payoff in the part 8. And you know what? I think maybe time. It may be time.
Maybe time.
Mr. Townsel. That we Mr. Townsel, you are so good at finding the beats of a story. Could you please help us out here and take us through the beats of part 8, Surrender?
Captain, I would be delighted. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do something a little bit different this week myself. I'm going to introduce a few beats as highlights of beats to come in the episode because they're just too much to potentially miss by accident.
I love this. I love this.
Okay, so coming in the episode, Vadic's death, the T2 alien's death. Come on.
I am so unhappy about that death. Can I just say? I'm glad that there's an end to Vadic's threat, because what a villain. What a psycho, murderous, doesn't give a damn about human beings villain. And that death, I have a theory. And I might save it for the prediction section.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
One thing, this might go to your theory to some extent, but
yeah,
this isn't actually a beat, but it's just something that came to mind as her death was occurring, and I'm glad it didn't happen. But I sure did get vibes of a Princess Leia, Mary Poppins flying through space deal when she was hurtling toward the strike.
Wow. Wait, Princess Leia? Was she...
Oh, in the Last Jedi, she flew through space and got back on the ship. And
oh my God, I gotta watch that movie again. I forgot.
Yeah, because I just knew they're going to have her just float into a shuttle bay or something.
I thought for sure that was going to happen. Like there would be something that would save her. And the fact that she smashed into a million little pieces, that little
that's upsetting. The T2 part for me.
Yeah.
The T1000.
Yeah, but okay, so this is Patrick.
No, pressure's on.
Yeah. But this is the liquid metal Terminator.
Exactly. It's and just also reminded me of, just the Mama Alien and Aliens too, just hurling through space, dying,
Yes. Well, I yeah. All is probably not lost. No, but there's no other episodes of Picard. So, so I'm like, well, there's a way she could come back, but it's like, well, Picard's over. Like, when would she, in what world would she come back? Oh, it's tough because this was a good villain that she was playing, Captain Vadic. Let's see what Craig has to say. They did linger on her going towards the Shrike, and I was waiting for the Vadic chunks to form back up again. Same here, Craig. I was like, come on.
Well, I think everybody was.
What's that?
I think it was some of that classic misdirection. I think, again, beats to come, but this has to be, in my knowledge, the first Betazoid mind meld I've ever seen.
Interesting.
Coming up at the end.
Yeah.
And finally, as far as beats to come, I'll just have to throw out that got a little bit of a Matrix vibe going with Data being hooked up to the little big cable at the back of his neck and going into Matrix land, for a while. So,
and yet, I have to say, I didn't think that was going to be a good solution. I didn't think the two of them confronting each other was where we were going to go. And it is like so inexpensive. Just put them on a white set. Well, just put Brent on a white set, have him do the earlier part of the day as Data, the later part of the day as Lore, however you want to do it. That's just one shooting day with Brent, who I have to say, I was starting to really not like how he was playing Lore.
Really?
I thought he was overdoing it. Just a little actor note,
Yeah.
And yet I see why. And that'll come up later.
Yes, it will. And I need to stop digressing and get on with the beats chronologically. Although I will point out quickly,
we're trying to be. Yeah, we're teasing over here, and these are not the two guys. Yeah, we're not the two guys that should be teasing. I'm sorry. What were you saying, Joe?
I was just going to say that as a quick. I'll throw a quick tidbit in there, although that's to come later as well. But it did give me that vibe very, very reminiscent of the episode Tapestry, when Picard thought he was in the afterlife with Q there, way back when.
Yes.
The stark white, blinding, limbo type of environment.
Oh, I love that episode too. That was one of those episodes I didn't think I was going to like, and it's so iconic for me now. I think about it all the time, especially when I think about the relationship between those two. Yes, wow, good call. And that's a later TNG episode as well.
6th season.
Yes, where he's looking.
In fact, I think the only Q, at least in my mind, the only Q episode of the original TNG series that I'm not even sure Q was actually in, or was just Picard's, mind.
Oh wow, yeah, good point. Oh boy, that is interesting. This is a deep show. I mean, as much as we all go, Terry Metalis, he likes action, he likes down and dirty, he likes sort of adventure movie kind of patterns, but he really also has a almost Alfred Hitchcock level of turning up the tension, turning up the stress,
right,
and really like letting the character suffer. He's really good at that. If he loves you, you're getting messed up. In this show. We could just see it with Captain Shaw. He loves Captain Shaw. Captain Shaw has been beat within an inch of his life.
Oh yes, and he's pretty beaten here, as we're going to see. But I think we have a little bit of revitalization coming toward the end of the episode. But speaking of the episode, let's get started with it.
Indeed. I almost feel like I've got to play. Hang on. I almost feel like I got to do this again.
Oh,
I'm not going to make you do it. Okay. So the beats. Mr. Townsel.
Apologize for the digression, but I just wanted to make sure those points got out there. We start off with basically, here's Vadic in control on the bridge, got everybody lined up in like firing squad fashion, possibly. And I'm going to take your ears. I'm going to take your eyes. I'm going to take your nose and your throats. Oh, no, just the ears and eyes. I'm going to take your gravity.
Right.
Very, very reminiscent of Khan Nooney and Singh, but not throughout the 2 Khan, but Space Seed Khan.
Yes, classic.
Yes,
Khan
exactly.
Classic.
Going to take away your environmental controls, gang. So you better just, buckle down here.
Which is a great reminder of what space travel is. You can't take any of this stuff, including gravity. You can't take any of this stuff for granted.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So her motivation, her only motivation at this point, is get Jack Crusher. We got to have him. We got to have what he brings to the table. So basically, in the true voice of Bob Barker or Drew Carey, she's saying, Jack Crusher, come on up. Well, Beverly and Picard hold him back for a little bit. Says, hey, she's just going to blow us all up if you go now anyway. So
Right.
But Jack's trying to do the right thing. And he says, you know what? I got this little power here I just discovered with Sidney LaForge over here. And I can kind of jump into and out of people's bodies and kind of control them and stuff. And it's like when my eyes turn red, that means someone else's eyes are going to turn red, shortly thereafter.
This is straight out of the new Teen Titans in the early 80s, by the way. There was a character Deathstroke the Terminator, his character could do this. But whatever. exact same power, but whatever. Sure.
Exact same power. And wasn't that a little bit of Raven as well? In the Titans? Or was it just Deathstroke?
I think Raven definitely had powers where she could take people over. That is true.
Because she was empathic.
Yeah. But this character, Joshua, he actually needed eye contact to do it. As soon as you gave him eye contact, he could jump into you.
That's right.
And I think he would disappear too. I don't think he was like Jack Crusher. I don't think he was still there. And
I feel bad for Jack. He always wants, when he comes out of somebody, he always wants to, looks like he's having the dry heaves or something. Like,
and most of the episode, like, is he working up the tears? Like, he's got tears in his eyes the whole episode. I mean, hey, if you can do that as an actor, more power to you.
More power, drumming up tears on command. That's always been a plus, as I understand it, as far as in the acting world.
It is indeed.
Well, meanwhile, over on we finally get some quality. Well, I'm going to dub now the Troiker couple. Yeah, I don't know if have you ever heard that before? Is that
I have not. Mine? I have not. Put a copyright on it right now.
Let's do it. Let's do that, because I'm going to call them Troiker. They're over there on the strike, and I'll tell you, for someone that's been tortured apparently, and unmercilessly, she looks pretty good. I mean, he looks like he's still pretty worse for her. I mean, to the point where she says that your beard is now, blood red.
Right.
Having the crap beaten out of you. But
I love that line she had about, like, you're an old man who can still take a punch.
That's
and it's true.
But I guess they're having given a break, getting beat up and tortured and everything, and having a little bit of a heart to heart, which has been good in this season so far.
Little closing the circle on that. Like to see it. His marriage was in trouble. He and his wife have been going through some stuff, so now we're settling it in a jail cell. Very, very Star Trek.
Very Star Trek, and I gotta tell you, it leads into one of the best lines of the episode, which also reminds me of one of my favorite jokes about pizza, and that line is, "Well, he was good in bed and bad at pizza." So, John, I have to ask you, why is sex like pizza?
Because even when it's bad, it's still pretty good.
Exactly. Exactly right.
That's a classic. I think I heard that one like in the 70s.
Oh, same here. I'm not sure they didn't write it that way for us to remind of that joke.
And that was all a joke about how somebody disguised as Riker came to her. And Riker's like, when did you figure out it wasn't me? And she was like, after we slept together. Like, but she's joking. But I love that, because that's Riker humor. Like, she's using Riker kind of jokes to Riker, which of course she would. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I noted that some people have noted confusion in the line that followed, as far as, well, we knew that from the minute he walked in the door, he was a fake. But to me, it was obvious at that moment, as well, she was clearly joking about the other.
Yes.
Because they've been having problems, they're not going to hop right into bed anyway, are they?
No, of course not. Of course not.
And I did have to do some research in that. Terry Metalis did confirm at some point, because I was saying, where's Kestra? Wouldn't they have taken her along to some collateral as well?
Right. Where's the little girl? Where's the baby?
She is in an early admissions program at Starfleet Academy.
Oh, okay.
No, so she's not on was it Pinthe?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I had it in my head, but I couldn't. Pinthe?
Like Rura Pinthe without the Rura.
She's at camp.
She's at camp. making a wallet for her dad in arts and crafts.
Hey, if they put her on the Starfleet Academy show, I wouldn't hate it.
Hey, well, more on that to come, but it's getting more and more likely that's going to be a 32nd century setting.
Yes, right, because they could probably put Tilly on it.
Exactly. So
We kind of knew that was going to happen. Look at Craig Robinson coming in with the
Nepenthe.
proper spelling for Nepenthe. Thank you, Craig. Well done.
I always hear Penthe because I'm probably just hearing like a Penthe, like I just did.
It's a thing. I was reading about it. It shows up a couple of different places in science fiction.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, back on the Titan Bridge, Shaw and Seven having a little debate. It's kind of at this point that Shaw's showing a little bit of being a little bit of a coward, but again, he has a little bit of a re-energization going on later. So we'll cut him some slack there. And he did just have the crap beat out of him on the turbo lift. So.
Well, and also, I mean, like he established from the very first time we meet him that he thinks people who take chances and take risks are out of their minds.
Right.
He is that. There's no trying to think of a way to say it that's not really profane. I've known people from the military, and there's a certain in the military within that community, there is a certain amount of complaining about the people upstairs.
Sure.
And that they don't quite get it. They don't quite get what it's like to be the boots on the ground.
Well, it's going to take more than this one crisis to bring him, to Picard Riker thinking.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Because what we're talking about is we're talking about making a hero out of somebody who doesn't like heroes, who thinks heroes are far too dangerous. And there's an argument there. There's definitely, especially in the light of a military, there's an argument there about cowboys and risk takers and people who go way too far. Like, you endanger everybody. His whole thing has been, you've endangered my crew and my ship. And there's no argument there.
Well, how do you argue? I mean, it does. If you had a captain that was like that, for the long term, it'd make for kind of dull television. But in reality, I mean, military leader, especially of that caliber, is going to probably go in the way of Shaw.
Yeah.
And not discover cowboy diplomacy until later on in his career.
Right. I mean, there is a time to take chances and there's a time not to. But when it comes to our heroes in Star Trek, it's every week that they take chances, because that's what's exciting for us. But you have to know that in the larger picture of the Federation, it's like, those guys are nuts. They're messing with time travel. They made friends with the Borg Queen. They are nuts.
Well, by now we know that Jack has revealed to his parents that he has this ability to inhabit other people and take control of their motor function. So he's going to try to take a quick trip mentally up to the bridge and enter in this override codex of Picard's.
Yes.
So they can try to secure code that way. And boy, for a moment there, it looked like he was going to do it. But I was also thinking, says, if Seven is noticing this guy over by this console is tapping buttons.
Yeah.
Isn't Vatic? And then she did, of course.
Of course she did. Why did he jump in one of the Federation guys and not in one of the goo creatures? I guess maybe you could say it's hard for him to jump into one of Vatic's stormtrooper goo guys.
Could be, and would they might conceivably be more conspicuous punching into a console.
No,
without her instructions.
Yeah, because none of them were like sitting at the equipment. None of them were at consoles. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
So at this point, it's like, well, we're going to take a lesson from Errand of Mercy, original series. We're going to get somebody out every 10 minutes or so and execute him. So until you produce them in the flesh, as it were.
Classic hostage taker.
So after some tense moments there, we end up losing our new favorite Vulcan.
Loved her.
Lieutenant Tavine.
Oh, loved her. The shaved head and those beautiful ears. Just a beautiful gal. Oh man, I'm sorry to see her go. But honestly, I love the Titan crew, so I'm sorry to see any of them go.
Well, in terms of the story, again, for the down and dirty, but I think her absence is probably almost necessary at the end of the episode.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Put a pin in that. I want to hear the rest of that.
Absolutely. I definitely will bring that up again.
Yes.
So attempt number 1, no go. 1 hostage executed. So we're back to the Shrike. time to talk a little bit about what happened with poor Thaddeus when he died. And tell you what, I mean, this is the first of two occasions in this episode that Troy is demonstrating near Vulcan abilities. I mean, so here we have her as Cybok, removing her husband's pain.
Oh, that was weird. That came
Yeah.
out of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, I think all her abilities in this kind of come out of nowhere. They're definitely new to the continuity.
Wild. So she could lessen his pain by taking it away from him somehow. Yeah, that's very Cybok, isn't it?
It's very extremely Cybok. Let me take your pain. Let me mask your pain, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And of course, Riker resents it because, in pure Kirk fashion, I need my pain.
Yeah.
You know,
right. Understand.
But more specifically, he needed his grief. You know,
yes,
deal with it.
Yes, and it does. I mean, it does explain how he's been. Yes. That his grief is sort of coming on. It's he's bearing it. Why now? I mean, why not earlier? We find out.
Again, certain things, and that's why I really credit this season of Picard too, is that certain things that have made little or no sense have actually been explained in a very satisfactory way.
I agree.
And this is one of those.
Yeah. By not hopping around the universe and around time and spending more time in feelings and characters and emotions, especially in this, I would say the most sentimental season of any Star Trek show.
Oh,
we've returned to the magic of this TNG cast. And really, all the other casts are great. I do enjoy them all. But this one's something special. And I understand going really deep with these characters because so many of us fans go really way back and really deep with them. Considering
pretty much the beginning.
We were watching this stuff in the 80s. There are so many people out there who weren't alive in the 80s. So this is big for us, but I hope big for everybody. It's a good story. That's our contention, I think.
If it wasn't that, then it would be, and I'm going to actually introduce a term here that I pegged earlier today. If it wasn't for the good story, we would have only, and here's the term. You ready? Fan service porn. Where the fan service gets so big and we love it so much. But if there's, and when we get to our predictions and down and dirty, I'm going to elaborate on that a bit. But if it wasn't for the story, ultimately it would be the sizzle, but not the steak.
Yeah. I mean, it would be what people feared it was going to be. There had been a pushback for decades now of like, should they finish telling the story of TNG? Should there be more TNG? Should they get the band back together? And there was always this fear of like, it's just the snake eating its tail. What's the point? Where are you going to go? We know enough about them that we don't really need to tell you anymore. And yet they found a way to do it.
They certainly did. Now, right about the time that one of the goo guys is coming to torture him some more, you get that good old Klingon theme music accompanied by Worf putting his bathlight right through the guy's chest. Worf to the rescue.
I did not see that coming, and then immediately felt like an idiot not seeing that coming.
I totally agree, because I thought, well, clearly Worf and Raffi will be back this week, but I didn't see it. Well, I think the one reason too is there's a little bit of a plot hole which they may or may not address, but I'll just mention it quickly now.
Yeah.
Where did they get this cloaked shuttle? I don't think I missed anything.
Where did they get the cloaked shuttle? Now, is that Jack and Sidney LaForge did the cloak for the other ship.
Well, they did the cloak for the Titan, and they did the
right for the Titan.
So I don't know. I mean, again, commenters, audience, if I've missed something, and please enlighten us. But I think that was a pretty out of left field thing. So I could explain why they seem to get on there so easily.
Okay. How about this? Now I'm
Mhm.
just guessing here. Is it maybe a Vulcan? I'm sorry. No. Is it a Klingon cloak? Because we know Klingons had cloaks. That's where the cloak came from for the bounty.
Yeah, and
Was
they
a
took the
Klingon
bounty cloak, and maybe it was for this shuttle. I mean, that could be the piece I'm missing right now because they
cloak.
did have to take the bounty cloak
Yeah.
to cloak a Starfleet vessel, so that could be the missing element. But at any rate, you and I were both flummoxed. We said, "Oh, Worf."
I mean, like, yeah, hell yeah.
And I love how Worf goes into a little bit of inappropriate exchange with Deanna. I have counted the days since I last saw you. Forget this guy. I'll be your Mzadi. I'll be your, what's that new word? I have it written down here. I'll be your Yentaru.
Is that baby of unusual size? What I loved about that was we've spent a little bit of time with the new Worf discussing how he's gone on this journey through meditation and spiritual advancement, and when he sees Deanna again, he has planned what he wanted to say and how important she was to that journey, to him understanding he needed to go on that journey. And oh, it was so beautiful because it was very, you know what it did? It brought me back to one of my favorite things from The Next Generation, which was there was quite a period there where it seemed like something was going to happen between Troy and Worf.
Oh yeah, pretty much from parallels to the end of the series, more or less. And you know what? It wasn't a romantic thing. Obviously, he was, of course, referring to the lessons of empathy and passivity that she taught him. But of course, Riker's a little bit of a raw nerve right now, so he's going to take a little bit of offense. And
I'm right here. I just could you stop hitting on my wife for a second?
I mean, let's just say that I don't think Worf is a home wrecker, and he certainly isn't a House of Riker wrecker. Let's put it that way.
He didn't write her any poetry, Riker. He was just giving her this prepared speech about how she was such an inspiration to him, which, by the way, is like super advanced for a man to be able to say to a woman, you got me to think and you got me to become a better person. And I really appreciate that in a platonic way. That's so not Star Trek. And yet it is now. And that's life, by the way, folks. That's
Yes.
life. You could be the most macho guy in the world and still women can teach you things and you should appreciate it.
Absolutely. And well, I'll tell you what, John, back over on the Titan, it's looking pretty grim, only because it would take Sydney a year to figure out all the configurations to override this control that Vadic has. Her dad could do it in a month, but where's he? He's not with him right now. They need 1.75 gigawatt. No, excuse me, 1.75 trillion. Figures a second, and who is going to provide that except, of course, Data? So the question is back to with this: how do we get to Data without releasing lore?
Yeah. Now the Data who is just infected with lore was such a problem in part 7. So now here we are in part 8, and we've run right back to that problem. And I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, okay, is there a better solution? Do we have to let lore out again? Is there a better solution? But no, they were right. They were right that we should tackle this again. And boy, it was touch and go there.
Well, it certainly was, and they kept us on the edge of our seats for quite some time. And
yeah.
This may be one of the items that you were referring to in terms of me being right. If not, I'll take credit for it now. But it seemed pretty obvious to me for last week and maybe even prior that the only solution ultimately was going to be that one would have to absorb the other.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And
we had no reason to believe that Data could absorb lore.
Only because, as Joy points out, those Isaac Asimov laws of robotics, ethical subroutines of Data's. He cannot intentionally take a life except in, I guess, in defense. He's done that before. They don't mention it here.
Right.
But in terms of going after lore, no, there was no way he was going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no king of the mountain instinct in Data.
Exactly.
And lore is 100% that.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing nothing redemptive there at all. Well, at least not until we get a little bit later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so of course this means we got to get to Geordi, who's over there with Data. And nice little way to prove it, we are who we say we are. Basically now we have Worf and Geordi dissing Chateau Picard wine.
I'm starting to question Chateau Picard wine.
Well, it's hard not to. I mean, you got two of his trusted former officers telling you, it kind of sucks.
Wine is so subjective. That's actually the smartest thing that I ever learned about wine was some wines taste good to you and some don't. It's not that a $700 bottle of wine is guaranteed to taste better than the $40 bottle of wine.
Absolutely not. I got to tell you, I have to go back and look at the last scenes of Nemesis, but when Picard's like pouring out a glass to honor Data, I don't recall Geordi drinking it. Or Worf.
Was Geordi ever much of a drinker?
No.
Maybe I'm missing out. I feel like we find out he wasn't, but I don't know. I'd have to go through a lot just to learn that again.
Synthol type of stuff.
I want to throw this question up from Craig because
Sure.
I think it's an interesting point. And did either of you wonder how Vedic got so much control over the Titan?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't explain how she was able to do ship hails and take over ship systems. That's a very good question. I mean, she's not psychic, so she couldn't have read anybody's mind for it. I suppose she could have held a phaser to someone's head and then gotten certain command control from the captain. I think Shaw might do that because he was really all about keeping the crew alive and trying to save as many as he could. But that's a very good question, Craig. How did she get that deep into the system? There should be ID. There should be, what's your password? It should come up.
Unfortunately, Craig, I think it does fall within the category we have encountered occasionally over the decades. It's a little bit of a plot cheat, the ease of which they take control. We've seen it in all iterations of the franchise.
We sure have.
It just serves the story.
Yeah,
it leaves the viewer to fill in some blanks. So I'll fill in the blanks in my way by saying this: that essentially off camera,
right?
We just got into key systems with some of that bridge crew, and then he lined them up, and it's questionable. It's debatable whether the right actions were taken by the ship's captain and first officer. Right. I think.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a very good question, and somebody higher up in Star Trek should be answering it. Certainly not these two goofballs on your.
And the way to kind of gloss over some of those questions, in my view, is to make the thing so damn dark you just don't see them taking control of the consoles and the systems.
That's like the number one comment that I keep seeing about this show. Why is it so dark?
It's one of my top comments.
Could somebody just go over to the slider and like raise it a little bit to bring the lights up just a little? It's cheaper to do dark. It's just cheaper and easier.
They're going for atmosphere, and of course you can have less detail on the sets and so forth.
Yeah.
But when it gets to the point where old men like me are struggling to see what's happening,
it's so true.
I mean, we've seen Data and lore in the Data Matrix Limbo, whatever it is.
Yeah,
I didn't even know what that outfit of his looked like until they went into the brightly lit room. So the shoulders are gold, I can tell that much.
Right.
So it's a little bit too much. We'll this on that more as I'm before we're done, I'm sure.
Exactly. One of the things I appreciated about the data versus lore confrontation is that it was, and this is very TNG, it was represented on a screen as like, this is Data's head, and there are red lights and blue lights, and the red is bad and the blue is good, and we can see the blue lights being outnumbered. So there's like this great sort of simplistic visual to show you the struggle that's going on in this abstract world, in the white room.
In the white room, exactly. And we'll have to. One of us should have just dug up a red pill and a blue pill, just.
What is
no? But that imagery did not escape me either, Captain.
yeah. Oh, it's so funny.
But in Limbo Land, though, it's starting to get. Of course, I wasn't fooled for a minute here because I guess I can say I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And Data isn't just going to go into the fetal position and give up. But we're being led to believe that he's being overpowered. But when he starts voluntarily handing over trinkets and remnants of his memories, I said, okay, there's a plan here.
It was so like simple but kind of sweet. It was really and one of so I'm gonna go to one of the Joe Townsel was right. One of those where you had said, I'll bet Tasha Yar is going to show up.
Oh, okay.
But I bet she's going to show up as that little hologram that she gave Data, and which is essentially a photo, but it's this hologram, and they kept it on screen for quite some time, which I thought was adorable.
Yeah, Laura's like, oh, check that out.
Denise Crosby in her 20s.
Yeah. It's from her funeral, but that's okay.
Well, I always loved that hologram because you can see Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar being self-conscious. Like, what, stand here? Just stand? Like, there's a little like shrugging and kind of like shifting from foot to foot. I just always loved that she put that in there. Good actor. I wish she had done more.
I would say it had to do more because going off on a Denise Crosby digression for a moment. I mean, the whole Sayla storyline was her idea.
Great storyline.
And they just abandoned it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, Sayla, the Romulan. There should have been more there.
They should have had her in Nemesis. And if they didn't do that, they could have had her earlier in Picard.
Yeah.
But it's gone forever now.
Yeah. No, and I'm not hating the Romulans that we ended up with.
No. I mean, Denatra was great, but I think we could have sacrificed the Denatra character in favor of Sayla.
I would have, but again, maybe too much fan service here. I don't know. I
don't know. I think that would have been maybe so, but it would have been fan service, but I don't think it would have been too much. I think it would have been very appropriate.
And this is interesting too. As Data is handing these memories to Lore is taking most of them and just throwing them over his shoulder, and they just sort of poof
out of his head. Yeah. Well, he's absorbing them, I guess, at that point, sort of.
Exactly.
That's the visual,
But then, and again, this just touched my heart. I'm such a big mush. You know that about me. Spot the cat. He is a good cat. He is a pretty cat.
He's a good kitty.
And he gives Spot to Lore, and Lore's like, ha 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 ha. Like, he's not being mean, because that to me was Lore's gonna do something terrible to that cat. But he didn't. And actually, there's a good reason why he didn't. Because these memories are changing him.
That's right. And because I would have been really irritated if he said, cat.
Yeah. No. Never endanger a cat. You want to make it in show business? Do not endanger dogs or cats or children.
Well, and the most poignant part of that exchange was that Spot was not only the first, but at this point has been the only source of Data's love.
Right.
We have to look back, of course, at his first emotional reaction ever to anything when he discovered Spot had not been killed after the saucer crash of the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
And of course, for his memories over time, this was someone that he cared for and cared for him, and he got love and friendship from others, of course, but Spot just encapsulated in such a unique way to him. So,
and I know you personally, Joe. I know you're not in love with cats. But you can feel that way about a cat. I'm telling you, I've had so many cats that I just adored. I'm a big dog and cat guy. And for all I know, birds and fish too, but I've never owned any of them. Oh, birds.
Well, I mean, I'm primarily a dog person, but I live with cats, and I'll just say I'll confess that I have from time to time stroked a pussy. So
I should shut this whole damn show down.
Let me get back on track here.
Yes, please do. Because my mental images of you right now, you're stroking everything.
Well, of course, that was my intention. But I'll tell you, I mean, back over on our last moments, as it turns out, over on the Shrike, Worf says, "Let me show you this before we head out on the shuttle." And there's Rafi, and they say, "Yeah, we're still each other,
Yeah.
And there's the Picard corpse, and I know we're going to get the answers to this. I'm going to say next episode.
Yeah.
Why they're mining whatever elements of aromatic syndrome out of his, parietal pathways or whatever.
Right.
I can't even fathom what that's all about.
I love that. I love that you are such a steel trap. You have so much knowledge about so many different episodes and so many different sources for science, and you're stumped by this. I totally dig that. And I dig the fact that they're being very specific. Oh, yeah, the parts of his brain that we thought had this disease or this defect in them are something else. And they're not telling us what.
Now, one thing I'm not clear on is if they took the corpse with them on the shuttle, or if they figured it's already been mined, or whatever, that they didn't need. It was just organic residue at that point. But I guess we'll find out.
Question. Yeah, it's a really good question, because I wouldn't leave it there. I mean, I even if it's an empty bottle, I'd still be like, well, it's still, we can throw it away. We might as well. I don't want them to have it.
I tend to be a hoarder in that aspect. I say, I'm going to make sure I can't use this anymore before it goes away completely.
That is so true. It's a perfectly good Jean-Luc Picard. Well, I'm not just going to chuck that away. There's going to be some use for that at some point. Oh my God, that's so.
I mean, Picard now, he might want to get a taxidermist and have it mounted on the wall or something. Have his head sticking out of the wall.
How often do you get to look at your own corpse? Never. Maybe.
Well, I mean, Sydney did. She threw up. So.
That's true. Boy, this series, this season has had it all.
It sure has. And we're not done yet.
Oh, damn.
Well, Jack shows up on the bridge. He's got himself like a thermal detonator. No, wait a minute. That was Leia. He has some device.
But I love though that I immediately thought the same thing. Well, that's a grenade. And it's something that Leia did in Star Wars. I love it because I just jumped to the same. I think we all did. It's like, the way he was holding it, it looked like he was going to blow everybody up.
Well, and I guess that was part of the ruse, because otherwise, why didn't Vatic just have one of her, goo henchmen just take the thing away from him? But if it was a grenade, that would have been pretty dangerous. So I can buy that. But there it is. After the commercial, we're back to Laura apparently devouring Data. And that's when, of course, we see the Tash and we see Spot come in, and he just is handing those memories over to Laura. But it is having that effect, as you point out, John. That,
I just love that.
He's starting to erode at Laura in a different way.
And very Star Trek, too.
Very Star Trek. I've always had everything. You've had nothing here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've been alone. You have been isolated, and it wasn't all your fault. And so here, and then they resolve it with the big hug.
Yes.
Now, I'm not complaining. I actually like this. but Jean-Luc Picard and Q in season 2. Big resolution, big giant hug.
I have no issue with it. And I'll tell you, go back to the very beginning. Kirk hugging his evil self prior to being reintegrated.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
That's
Basically saying, I
right.
need you as part of me.
Right. And that you are loved. I mean, to be totally cornball, you are loved. And that's what all of those hugs means. Star Trek, man. Ooh, so much heart. So much heart.
Exactly. Well, so Vatic, says, I don't need all you guys here to potentially overpower us. So throw everybody in the next room, lock them up. 7 declines. She's going to stay with Jack because it's time for her to pay her dues.
Right.
And Jack says, okay, well, doesn't really matter because I'm going to throw a force field up now. While all of Vatic and her goo henchmen are here on the bridge. So with a little bit of teamwork, with Jack's force field bubble, Picard's codex, and everything else going on, they just open up the view screen and just basically blow everybody out into space.
Every time they show us a new ship, I love when they show us something that these ships can do.
Right.
I had no idea you could open up the bridge. Have we ever seen that before, Joe?
We've never seen it. I know that the bridge in literature and Star Trek is easily detachable because you would upgrade the bridge apparently more, at least as much as you would upgrade the engines.
That makes it
so they can literally lift one out and put another one in its place.
Sure.
It makes sense that it would also up, as I explained it. I mean, it would open up for evacuation purposes.
Yeah. It's as you say, being able to switch out technology and stuff.
Right.
I
think that's why we got different bridges all the time in the original characters' movies.
Good point.
I don't think they were simply cosmetic change. They were actually new consoles.
Yeah.
As upgrades.
It's so smart. I mean, when they were doing it, I was never like, hey, you can't do that. I'm one of those fans who's like, oh, you're telling me you can actually open it up to space. Well, sure. Why couldn't you? Yeah. Why not? Incredible. So the end of the movie Alien, basically blowing it open, and her great line. And you know what's great about this show? You and I are not fighting to say this line. But would you please say her line?
You want to say it together?
I'm not sure I have the exact line.
It's only 2 words.
Okay, yes. Fucking solids. It was the best.
The only time in all of these new Star Trek series that I appreciated the use of the word.
Same here. I am never there are moments where the swearing is okay with me, but I'm never like, oh, that's exactly what you should have said until now.
Yes.
Especially coming from Vedic, because Vedic is as close to wanting to kill you as anything is ever going to be.
Right.
She hates us solids.
And as soon as we see her kind of explode and crystallize after hitting the hull of the Shrike, we expect to go to commercial at that point, but no. Thankfully, here comes everybody out of the next room. Here comes Captain Shaw, having her commander take it, and one of the best utterings of this line, fire.
Yes.
And they blow the Shrike to smithereens.
Yeah, which is, here we are in part 8.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since part 1, the Shrike has been this unbeatable, unkillable machine of death, just like its crew, just like its captain. And we do finally get that cathartic, counter-strike. And they do blow it up. And this is why I think you're right about the Picard corpse. I don't think the Picard corpse was on the Shrike. I just don't think it was. I think they kept it.
It would make no sense to leave it behind. because there's still potentially answers they don't have.
Yeah,
they don't have sets. So.
And if they knew they were going to blow it up, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, it seems pretty dire over in Limbo Land for Data. As a matter of fact, when you see our little red and blue lit skull graphic,
the
red takes over. Data just evaporates. And oh my god! At that moment, I thought maybe, I don't know.
Same
but no,
here.
they didn't draw it out.
Yeah.
Literally a second later, here comes Data saying, the only way that I could draw you in, just like Rocky drew in Clubber Lang, was to offer you my memories as trophies. But then you came to appreciate what they really were.
Right.
And you embraced them. And that now makes it possible for you to become part of me.
It creates that bridge between the two.
Right.
That Lore has always resisted, and in many ways, Data has always wanted. Data has always wanted to have a brother more than Lore did.
Exactly.
Which is funny because Lore is the younger brother, and that makes sense too.
So, Data's back.
Yeah.
Older, got a stiff neck, but he's back.
Yes. I do love how everything's new to him. Yes. So, because, okay, here's the thing. As a fan, I've always listened to Brent Spiner. I've always considered Brent Spiner, such an important part of the next generation. Everyone does. And Brent Spiner naturally was like, there's a lot more to me. I can do a lot more than this and just play this one guy, this innocent Pinocchio waif.
Right.
And he proves it over and over every time he plays one of the Sung family. He chews up the scenery. He really embraces these characters. He loves playing characters. And so now he's Data with a bit of lore in him. And I love that.
Well, so do I. Again, I keep drawing it back to the enemy within, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Data was never ineffectual. He was always extremely worthwhile and important and unique, but he was incomplete as it turned out.
Right. That was always his strategy.
Lord completes him.
Yes. And they keep mentioning B4, which I love. That was always to me like one of the cutest little Easter egg things they ever did was, the 1.0 version of Data. It was called B4. I believe they make a reference. Is this from Nemesis that they got B4?
Well, B4, yeah, he was introduced in Nemesis.
Yes, right. And isn't it Riker who's like, well, once again, Dr. Sung and his love of ironic
whimsical names.
But here he is, as you say, this is the closest he's come to ever being complete. And he's still not used to it, which gives us some ground to cover with him. Makes the character interesting to play for Brent Spiner.
Well, and it gives obviously a fresh light to the character. Brent Spiner has indicated that he is definitely open to playing him going forward, and why not? Because it's now pretty much a new character with familiar beginnings.
And you know what he reminds me of? This is so goofy. The new Data reminds me of like the first 2 seasons of the Next Generation Geordi.
Yeah.
He's finding his way. He's got a little bit of a sassy use of swearing and enthusiasm, and he's awkward.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, there are 2 aspects that they, in my opinion, did not leave hanging. I would not have appreciated if they did, but they did clarify, which I appreciated very much. Number one, they just said, Lore is here, but I'm Data.
Yes.
That's who I am. I'm just now have been enhanced and evolved. They didn't use that word, but I have. Yeah. Right. And number 2, that basically there is some place to go. And the Data we saw in season 1 was a version of Data, which our Data now says it is resting comfortably.
Yes, right.
It's at peace.
Right.
But this version, the one that died in Nemesis, is now continuing.
I love that because we do everything they've told us is true. Data's dead. he's dead. Yes, that Data is dead. And this older version of Data, which they rebooted, they brought back, is now alive. But there's still so much to learn. And he is supplemented, with the modules of the other personalities that Dr. Sung put in there, including Dr. Sung's own, personality and memories. Mwah! I love where they put that. I love how Brent Spiner is playing it. I think they did an amazing job not bringing back Data, but bringing back Data.
Exactly. It reminded me a bit of, you remember the fourth season episode, Future Imperfect. Now, this turned out to be a trick.
Yes.
But the concept there was that Riker had a 16-year gap in his memory. Well, that's what we have here.
Yes. It's not untrod territory. We have had to deal with this concept before. The man out of time.
Exactly.
I love it. And
well, next for
a reference to what that person was all that time ago. That's an interesting challenge too.
Well, sure. And this is not information that's not unavailable to the new Data. He'll fill in the blanks as he goes, which will be part of his new character development, which I hope we will see in some form.
I agree.
We have a very nice corridor scene between Data and Geordi as they talk about their friendship, how grateful and gratified the Data was to have had it.
Yeah.
They're all excited about him using contractions.
That's really and that's an indication of how he's going to be different.
Well, he is largely human now.
Yes, right. He's like 1 degree away from being human now.
I mean, he has synthetic. It's a synthetic positronic organic body, just like Picard. Do we think of Picard as any less than human? I don't. I mean, they've. The only thing I find a little bit of a stretch is they are in old man bodies. But hey, what can you do?
I'm happy enough with the. I'm happy enough with the explanation that Sungs, when they make these bodies, are like, well, you're old. You should look old. I mean, the Sungs are such prickly guys anyway.
Yeah.
If they do something that doesn't make sense, well, they did it because they wanted to. It's like an easy explanation.
Well, let's put it this way. If it's something that occurred to me, it's not something that took me out of the story.
Yeah, I agree.
As being so preposterous. So
I agree.
I want to make that clear. In the best scene of the episode, I think we both agree, John, totally moving and sentimental. For the first time since 2002 in Nemesis, we have, absent Wesley, we have the entire TNG crew in one place, in one scene, in one room, around one table.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see a conference room reunion. That was not on my bingo card. And I was so pleased once it happened. I was like, oh, I can't believe I haven't been yearning for this for the past 20 minutes.
I mean, the only plot hole created was like, why is it just these guys?
Yeah.
Where's Shaw and Seven? But you know what? We're going to overlook that because it gave us our moment. This is the Enterprise D crew together again around a conference table.
Exactly.
Sharing some very poignant, very moving exchanges, which were very satisfying. Nothing corny, nothing out of left field. Just a very real exchange of feelings with these people.
I agree, and I was equal parts surprised and impressed that they did that. Yeah. That they basically had emotional closure, like this one and that one and this one. Right. And that's cool. Although I have to say the writer in my head was going, and you're not going to have some smart ass like comical line that's sort of the button of this whole thing. Nope, we're just going to let it stand.
Well, I think you must have missed it, John.
Which one?
It was not just a comical line, but it was also a very life affirming, realistic line. That's of course from Worf, who from him we learned that sending severed heads to your colleagues is a little passive aggressive.
Okay, like that. That is a perfect example of where I love the comedy kind of like blink, kind of like putting the final touch on it. But there were moments that were just like, nope, this is just sentimental. This is just sweet.
Oh, overall, that was the intention. That's what we got. I think that Worf has been used very effectively for for lack of a better term, some comic relief, but not
Yeah.
by bringing him out of character.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
not by making him, not by putting a pie in his face, by making him, he is so much wiser now.
Yes.
And probably like the most happy, balanced Klingon I've ever seen, which makes sense. I want that for Worf. Worf could do that. He could pull that off.
Now, of course, who turns out to be the party pooper in this group? Well, of course, it's Deanna Troi, because she feels an overwhelming darkness. Oh, no. So we determine, well, it's time for Deanna and Jack to have a little powwow, and that's where we get our little Betazoid mind meld, as I've dubbed it.
Right.
And our episode ends with that remaining question: what the F is behind that red door already?
There was some real teasing in this episode about the red door. Vedic says to him, "Did you see the red door?" And he's like, "Wait, what? You know about the red door?" And then Deanna does the same thing. Of course, I thought with Deanna, she was actively like getting in his head, and that's how she was kind of reading this.
Well, again, to me, it was a mind meld.
And
that's probably one. I might be reaching here, but that might be one reason why our Vulcan Lieutenant Tavine was taken out. Because otherwise, why wouldn't they utilize her abilities?
Oh my gosh, that is such a good point. Wow, it's so funny too, because with her bald head, I was like, she's like a Vulcan, but she's kind of like a Deltan.
Might be a product of both. Who knows? Or
maybe those Deltans get around.
Yeah. Because hey, I mean, Organians, Deltans, they're always horny, and when Vulcans come into it every 7 years, that'll probably be a pretty volatile combination.
I would pay to see that.
Yes.
And that's the most disgusting thing I've ever said on this show.
Well, the most disgusting thing I ever said was about a half hour ago when I made a comment about cats. So we'll leave it at that for this episode of Picardest.
Oh,
but John, that's what I've got for beats.
All right. Well, after the beats, we like to get a little down and dirty. This part of the show, we'll try to break things down, kind of examine things as we've been doing. So there may not be a whole ton to do here for down.
Now, I was just thinking the same. I think we probably covered a lot of the down and dirty during our beats, just because sometimes it's kind of, they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, sometimes you said you have to deal with it as you go, but there's probably a little bit more to mull over here. What do you think?
Yeah. I definitely think so, because they have set us up with this. Okay, here's a down and dirty, and I'm just going to cover a point that we just covered. So I'm kind of at the end of the episode. But why is Deanna so there? Why is she so present in his mind, able to see the red door? And her instinct is 100% we go and we open that door, even though he spent so long being afraid of it. And I'm actually wondering if the same mental thing and the voices that talk to him aren't kind of talking to her too.
I think so. I think that's a great possibility, a great point.
Because this is not exact. This is not as careful as I'm used to Deanna being. Of course, they don't have any time. So, maybe she is like, look, we can't do this gently. We got to go right in. But as soon as she started talking about the red door, I was like, is that Deanna? Or is that the influence that's in his mind that is calling to him and constantly giving him these visions? So, yeah, I wondered about that.
Well, I still wonder about a couple of things. I mean, at the top of this episode, Vadic was also asking him very interesting questions. How does it feel to be so alone, yet you can literally jump from one star system to another? I'm thinking, well, God, is he Red Jack from Wolf in the Fold? I mean, what is that all about? Because that's something new.
That would blow my mind. Okay, of all the theories that I've heard, he's a Pa Wraith.
Yeah.
This thing, that thing. Oh, actually, I forgot another thing that I had thought about last night. And I'll get right to it. But yeah, all the different theories about what he could be with these red lights in his eyes. I mean, geez, isn't that what that dangerous AI from Discovery was doing? Wasn't that putting lights in people's eyes?
Yeah, Control. Yeah.
Control, thank you.
Mhm.
It's freaking me out. But it seems organic. It does not seem like an AI.
I'm
But I love Red
yeah.
Jack.
It just, I mean, it certainly follows the pattern of that character. I mean, who knows? But no, I don't seriously think that's a possibility.
Yeah, I
Although it
don't think
just
they do.
reminds me of the character. But
I agree.
um,
I agree.
no, Jack is very much, and I think this is legitimate. We're not going to see a dark turn in the character at this point.
Yeah.
He's just a confused guy that has these abilities which he's now discovering, and it frightens me. He doesn't know what to do with them, especially when they emerge in the way they have been,
Right.
so fast and furious, so to speak.
Well, and here's a point I saw somebody, I got to tell you, on Facebook, I belong to a bunch of Star Trek groups.
Mhm.
I spend most of my time reading somebody's thing that they wrote and going, why am I surrounded by these idiots? This makes me question liking Star Trek. I mean, they'll be like, so what the deal with Klingon? I don't even, are you, maybe English is your second language? Nope. Your name is, Jack Smith. I don't know why you're talking like that.
No, social media has definitely made a lot of people very illiterate.
It's really, it's dumbed down the dumb.
Yes.
Which is crazy. But I'll give credit where credit's due. Every once in a while, somebody will make a point where it'll just kind of knock my socks off. Here's one. Beverly Crusher's children. She has Wesley, who, in the words of the Traveler, is like a once in a millennium, once in an existence level genius, who his personality actually and his abilities actually surpass time and space.
Yeah.
And I liked that about Wesley. I liked finding out that he's like this Mozart. He's like this prodigy of incredible abilities. I always felt like they were pushing him in that direction, so it made me happy. But there's Wesley, who's super unique, super powered, and now there's Jack, who has his own super unique superpowers. The common element being Bev. At which point I go, I don't know. Is this what happened when you have sex with ghosts? I don't know. Maybe.
So, Rosa fan, are you, John?
I don't know. She's had some green mist in her days. I don't know. It's an interesting point that she's had two sons or two children, and they're specifically unique. They're super unique. Very interesting observation. Do you think there's anything about his parentage that has anything to do with his powers?
I think those are very good possibilities to bring up, because it reminds me, of course, of Ben Sisko's father's name. I'm losing me at the moment, his first name, but Ben's dad.
Right, Ben's dad.
Unwittingly coupled with a prophet.
Yes.
Resulting in Ben.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it any more preposterous to suggest, as you seem to be, that during both of Beverly, maybe she's a target, or a whatever the word might be, for certain powers, saying, you know what, she's biologically pregnant, let's take advantage of that and give that child these abilities.
Maybe. I mean, I would love to hear their way of addressing that, and they've been very good at addressing these questions that us fans have. They think like us, the creators of the show, and they're ahead of us, and those are two great aspects to doing good fan service.
Sure.
Which I feel like is where we are. But otherwise, I think I'm with you. I have no real clues. I have no solid theories. Pa Wraith doesn't make any sense to me.
At
Him
this
being
point, it would be like, okay, you have to do some darn quick exposition to explain it
yeah,
away, and I'm not sure it'd be entirely convincing. So
yeah.
let's just attribute to a similar physical characteristic and leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the theories I've heard, he's some kind of changeling. Nope, I don't believe it. And
Well, he
what's the
said it
other one?
himself. He's never changed to or from anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
That's
even
right.
if the ability is latent, he's just never used it. But I think at this point he would have realized I'm human. I've had cuts. I've had bruises. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then another theory was, and you and I were kicking
Mm.
this one back and forth, that there's some sort of Borg remnant that got through from his dad, Jean-Luc
Yeah.
Picard, ex Locutus droid, uh, Borg, that there might be some Borg thing in there. I don't know about that either. I mean, it doesn't seem machinish. So I don't know.
I think also that the line of dialogue, which kind of threw a new wrench in it, well, not a wrench, but a new question, was also meant to confirm to us like, no, it's not going to be Locutus. It's not, hit Picard's corpse.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're mining whatever. I'm not clear on it, what it is. That's my point I made earlier.
Yeah.
But it's definitely involving the Irmotic syndrome. We're getting those aspects of his brain
Yeah.
for whatever we're developing.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
I think we can at this point discount the Locutus, Borg nanoprobes, that type of thing. But I do think there's credence to the possibility that, a la Wesley, Jack, having been born from Beverly, has been chosen to be a certain type of extra powered human being.
Yeah.
He's still Jean-Luc's son.
Right. Right. Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
they're not taking that away from us.
No.
He's still Jean-Luc's son. He still looks so much like Jean-Luc. Good casting. I really,
Looks and sounds.
I didn't love this kid at first, but I'm really used to him now. I really like him now. Okay. What do we do? Okay, so there's
Well, I'll tell you one thing we forgot last week. If you don't have the intro queued up, it's not a big deal, but I'm prepared to give you one of these for both episodes this week and last week, but we forgot our MVP for last week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we forgot it last week. I'm going to go first with MVP because I'm sure yours is better than mine. My MVP for this one, and it's just very sentimental, is Deanna Troi. It's so great to spend time with her again.
Yeah.
She is just very much Troi. I love Marina Sirtis. I love how she's aged. I mean, there's a point where she's standing hugging gigantic Johnny Frakes playing Riker, and he's like kind of got his hands like on her butt. Just like they're low. Those hands are low. And I'm just like, oh man, they love each other. I know it's not romantic, but they
be careful, Mr. Frakes. Jeannie Francis might be watching.
There's just something so real about their love for each other. And she does a lot in this episode. Yeah. So yeah, and yet I wouldn't say like my pick kicks everybody's ass. It's just very sentimental, but Deanna Troi, that's my MVP.
Put it this way. We never said that it was supposed to be MVP for purposes of the show necessarily, but our own personal MVP.
Yeah.
And that certainly is appropriate for John this week.
Yeah. Loving me some Marina.
Well, I can't disagree, but I'm going to have to go with a different pick, and that is going to be, of course, Data, Brent Spiner. Just seeing the total evolution and reemergence of this character in such a touching, believable, and moving way. That definitely was the backbone of this episode for me.
Which was nice because it preceded the emergence of the new Data, and the new Data, he got a mouth on him. He's a little bit of a prick. And that's cool. That's cool.
That's the lore coming through,
Exactly. And the Sung, frankly.
Yeah. That's where it all came from, obviously. And just a quick nod to last week. I mean, I'm just going to mention it. Just because of her particular character arc last week, I would give MVP to Vatic last week.
Yes. I mean, look, if Vedek's gone, and I'll meet you in the predictions and we'll see.
Okay.
But if Vedek's gone, that was a great way to go out. Amanda Plummer did every great villain thing I have ever seen anyone do, and then some on a Star Trek show. Instant Hall of Fame villain, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, a lot of they were comparing her to Khan, and I think there's a lot of aspects of it that that was a justified comment comparing her to Khan Nooney and saying, not because of the mustache twirling and things of that nature, but just because there's compelling aspects of the character without being, I mean, every now and then it kind of crept in, but unique, believable, and just thrilling.
Yeah.
But not a ripoff of somebody else that we've seen before.
Right. More like a sort of jumping off point, where you know there's a lot of these psychos in Star Trek. Rainn Wilson's Harry Mudd is another great one, and this psychotic, you know, hatred of life, of living creatures, of solids, just really, she did a great job. She did a fantastic job. I have another tidbit here. I'm just gonna throw that down. Okay.
You want to move to tidbits or predictions next?
You know something? Let's go to tidbits, because you must have some. You always do.
I got a few.
And because they're Townsel tidbits, they're gonna go first, Mr. Townsel. What kind of tidbits you got for the folks?
Well, you know what? I mean, we've kind of already touched on them. I'll be honest with you on that, but what the heck? Let's just isolate them in this section. You know, I already mentioned the Khan-like method of using the environmental controls to terrorize the crew.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed too, that just a nice little visual touch, that we do have what I call the Borg fisheye point of view as Jack projects himself through the ship.
That's true. The fisheye comes back, folks.
And I think the bulk of the tidbits obviously are going to be in the limbo land matrix area between Data and, or we got all of them. I mean, we didn't mention like the old style tricorder, the deck of cards representing all the great times playing poker and learning about his friends and their human qualities through all their encounters there and around the green table with his little green visor, of course.
Yeah.
We got lines in that passage echoed from Elementary Dear Data when he's referring to Sherlock Holmes and how he would only keep memorabilia for specific purposes.
Right.
Which is exactly what Data did. I mean, everything he handed over to Lore had a significant purpose in his life and had a part in building him as who he was.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I'm sorry, I just tripped across. I'm looking for a Data quote, and because I want to, but they don't have it on Memory Alpha. They're usually so good at that. I ran into this one, which happens a little later. Greetings, USS Titan. This is your friendly positronic pissed off security system. Back online, unwanted guests and monologuing protoplasms. I am initiating an immediate shift change. Damn. That's that moment where I go, this is the spicy Data. This is the lore influenced Data. And I could watch more of this. That would make me happy.
Really, I mean, given his stated willingness and actually enthusiasm for possibly doing more, I hope they do.
Yeah.
And again, I'm gonna try out my new term again. I don't want to see an overabundance of so-called fan service porn.
Right.
Where you can't even enjoy the story because you're too busy looking for tidbits.
Yeah.
But you know what? This is a new / old character And
Right.
there's so much more to be done. And as you pointed out, I think it was last week, John, Brent Spiner himself said, nobody's offered me a show, ... yet.
And this does give it new life. Yeah, let's talk about all of. I'm just reading off of Memory Alpha here.
Sure.
The objects in Data's memories, the Sherlock Holmes Deerstalker cap and the pipe, the hollow cube with Natasha Yar.
Mhm.
If they sell those, I'll buy one.
Get behind me in line, buddy.
Deck of playing cards, and of course, Spot, which he adopted no later than 2367 in TNG Data's Day, Spot was last shown in the possession of B4 in the movie Nemesis. I did not remember that.
In a deleted scene in Nemesis, they showed Worf taking Spot, adopting him.
Oh, I will take Spot. I will feed him.
I will make him a warrior cat.
The line about Spot that Data says to Lore is, "This is Spot. This simple creature managed something quite miraculous, something of which I did not know I was capable. In a way, he taught me to love. He is the best of me, the last of me." And that, as you said earlier, I think is the moment that he turns Lore into him.
Yes.
With that, that's just so sweet. It's so sweet. I love that stuff. One other tidbit I had, and you could call bullshit on this all day, and I would be perfectly okay with that. But when Vedic, played by Amanda Plummer, is saying she will execute every last one of them, that's what she says in Pulp Fiction.
I don't call bullshit at all. I think it's a great observation. Yes.
Whoever was writing her dialogue was like, I will execute every last Emmer effing one of you Emmer effers.
Well, the great thing is you don't even have to get the line exactly right, because she says it different both times she uses it in Pulp Fiction.
I didn't even remember that.
Go back and just watch both scenes.
Yeah.
Slightly different.
Somebody's got to do that side by side for videos. Yeah. It's beyond me.
That's a great tidbit, John. Never even crossed my mind, but I think it's a very legitimate tidbit for sure.
I've got some predictions. How about you?
I want to hear predictions about Vadic, so let's do it.
Are we good with the tidbits?
I think we are. Let's go on to predict something.
Oh, you know what? Here I am, like, getting in my own way. So I just want to make sure that I got all the things that Joe was right about. Joe was right about Tasha Yar coming back, and he was right about it in the form of the hologram. Joe was also right in that parts 7 and 8 should be watched together. Looking back on it now, if anyone said, "Oh, I'm going to watch part 7," I'm like, you better watch part 8 immediately, or else you're going to be as pissed off as we were the week we did part 7. And I think I feel like you called that Data was coming back.
Yes, I did.
That
just seemed to be the natural path for both those characters.
And I would have thought that they were never going to do that, because it was the obvious thing. It's the thing that we want. And so I was like, nah, they won't let us have that. They did. And I'm thrilled about that.
Give the fans what they want, as long as it works in the story.
That's what a writer says.
That's right.
All right, predictions. Here we are at the end of part 8, which means parts 9 and 10. And that's it. That's it, right?
That'll be all she wrote, but we still got those to go.
Okay, so do you want to go first for
No. I want to hear what you have to predict about Vadic.
Okay. Do you remember in Deep Space Nine, there's a merchant who sells to Odo a tiny little protoplasmic being?
Yes, I remember.
Odo has never seen another shapeshifter. He's never seen another changeling. And this thing is so similar to a changeling. And so he calls essentially his father. He calls the scientist who found him and asks that scientist to help him see if he can communicate with this little changeling, this little bit. I'm thinking that if it's possible for that changeling and possible for Odo, I can't remember if Odo was in open space, but I think this little changeling was. I think it's possible that they could bring back Vedic. Now, she was a solid version of a changeling, so she was a different kind of changeling. And, as you had mentioned, is it the T-2000? The liquid metal Terminator. He could reform. It would take him a while. It would take him quite a while to reform. And let's face it, once she hits the hull of the Shrike and breaks into a million frozen pieces, and they all go in different directions, it's going to be pretty darn hard for all those pieces to come back together. Gravity being what it is, speed being what it is, the velocity of these things going in opposite directions, it could be really hard. But if you told me later that somebody had went out there and collected all the pieces, found a way to vacuum up the Vedic, I would buy it. You could still bring Vedic back for me. Would that work for you, Joe? Would you let somebody bring Vedic back from this?
I think it would work under the right circumstances. And it also brings up a point we didn't address during, talking about the episode. One of the remaining mysteries is that we don't know who the talking goo head is that comes out of her hand after she cuts it off.
I have a prediction for that as well.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that, but that would certainly be addressed by.
Oh yeah,
if it's similar to the Terminator, the liquid metal Terminator, basically being able to reassemble himself after being frozen, but then there's heat, there's molten lead. Who knows? Maybe the explosion of the Shrike enables Vedic to at least partially reassemble in some way. And then, because we do know from Deep Space Nine, I don't know the specific episode, but I remember them confirming that that changelings can withstand the vacuum of space.
Right. Yeah.
So if they can be recovered, they can be resurrected in that sense. So there might be something what you're saying. So
you bring up an excellent point that I hadn't thought about, which is when Vedic is talking to the face creature, she cuts her hand off, puts it in a bowl, and he takes it over.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't he take over all pieces of her?
We might get a resurrection of Vedic in the form of a full body version of this being, whatever it is.
That could happen. Now, do you have a prediction for who the face is?
No, I just don't.
I have a terrible one.
Okay, better than nothing.
Terrible. People are going to hate me for this. I think it's Armus.
Armus.
He's a goo creature. He's a creature made of goo. Now, he was imprisoned on that planet, and no one's allowed to go near that planet. So how could Armus have this power? I think it's a terrible choice. I would, if somebody had pitched it to me in a writer's room, I would have been like, nope, pass, go on. Who's got something else? If it's not Armus, I have no idea at this point who it could be.
But would that allow us? We're assuming that Tasha is done, one and done.
Yeah.
With this season Picard.
Yeah.
Would that be a way of bringing back a de-aged Tasha Yar if you had Armus there?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, the problem with that is you'd have to either recast her, Denise Crosby just aged like a human being,
Well, I would say she'd have to be a de-aged, Tasha Yar. De-aged.
Yeah. I mean, if you showed me a CGI Tasha Yar, I probably wouldn't argue with you.
John, let me respond to your prediction by saying this. The possibility or the probability of that occurring is such that if it does happen, I will bow to you as being the ultimate predictor, as it is out there. But you know what? Stranger things have happened.
This is why I don't gamble, because I will take the craziest odds on something going, I don't know, this might be the time. This might be a time that a horse called Glue Factory is going to win the race. This might be the time. This is why I do not do that. Any other predictions you might have, sir?
I have one general prediction,
Okay.
and it's this. Part 9 will provide all the answers. Part 10 will be the whiz bang mega climax.
Sure.
And this may be almost as out there as your prediction about Goohead.
Yeah.
But maybe not, because we've seen these ships. Okay.
Yeah.
We already know that Starfleet has stupidly enacted a Battlestar Galactica weakness of networking all their starships.
Right.
Okay.
Ronald D. Moore, ladies and gentlemen.
Except
yes,
for those at the Fleet Museum.
I think, we've talked about this one, and that was actually a big part of the movie Battleship. That they had to bring out the analog, not digital, analog equipment, the old equipment. And that would be such a satisfying thing for so many fans if they could see the Enterprise B, or if they could see some ship that they knew was out there, the original Stargazer. It would really make a lot of people happy. There are ships that I love, but frankly, I've already seen them. I love oh my god, the DS9,
the Defiant.
The Defiant. I mean, just a flying weapon. I just loved that ship.
Well, John, here I'm going to expand on that.
Oh yeah, please do.
One thing we didn't address, because it was just mentioned very quickly a couple of weeks ago, was that there's something mysterious that Geordi and his daughter are working on in Hangar 12.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just say this out. It's the Enterprise D. The saucer.
D. It's the D.
It's the D. The saucer by itself, the saucer with a new Star Trek section, or a Galaxy class ship. That's not the Enterprise D.
Right.
We've seen the Defiant. We've seen other ships. We've seen Voyager.
Yeah.
What about a final battle that takes our TNG and Voyager crews? Let's put Picard and Riker back on the Enterprise. Let's put Worf back on the Defiant. Let's put Seven back on the Voyager.
Yeah. That could really be something.
And not preposterous, considering the fact that we have seen all but the Enterprise D.
Yeah. No,
and LeVar Burton let it slip that we will see the Enterprise D in some fashion.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're right about that. That's an excellent prediction, because it's not a reunion if you don't get the big, beautiful ship as well. Considered, okay, how big is the D, the Enterprise D? It's like one of the biggest, right? Galaxy class.
Galaxy class. I don't think the E was. I think the E was actually more streamlined and slightly smaller, at least in terms of decks.
That was my understanding. That really the D was the it was the cruise ship. It was the biggest.
Well, it wasn't meant to be a city in space either. It was back to being a warship for the movies, obviously.
Right.
The Enterprise F, we don't know. We're going to see the Enterprise F. It's been teased.
Yeah.
We know a big part of the Frontier Day celebration is going to be the early decommissioning of the F.
Right.
So will the G pop up? That might be a bit much, but
that would do a lot.
That's going to play in there too. And the Enterprise F, since it's being decommissioned, might already be offline as far as being connected to other Starfleet vessels.
Wow.
I think it's a safe prediction to say that some or all of these vessels are going to play a part in the climax of this season.
That makes sense. Sense. Just on the, like, they're not networked and they're heroic and they're part of what we do on this season of Picard. We bring out all these old bits that you love, and we put
Right.
them to work in service of this story. And we're there. We're, 9 and 10. That is the end of this series. So we
Right.
got to go out big. It seems
Go
to
with
me
a
like
bang.
that might happen.
And you know what? If we end up having some of our characters on the bridge of the Enterprise D, I'll tell you this much. Even with Generations lighting, we can still see it.
That would be such a change too. That would be such a tonal shift and such a switch.
Maybe that's intentional.
I agree because the Titan is the Titan. This dark, brooding ship that they've been on, it's not their ship. It's not a Star Trek ship. It's one of the Federation's ships, and it is Captain Shaw's ship. So I'd be perfectly comfortable with them going, yeah, we leave the Titan and we go and we get the Enterprise, and that's the rescue mission. And of course, the Titan is the Millennium Falcon at the end of Star Wars 4, where it comes in for a say, hey, I hope you saved some for us. Woohoo!
Well, and it's not unprecedented either, because in the second half of Redemption, season 4 premiere, what did Picard do? He basically took his best officers and had them captain other vessels in the fleet.
Right.
Why are you gonna concentrate them all in one spot?
Yeah. No, it's and it also works with the fact that Picard's an admiral now.
Yeah.
Admirals and commodores can lead fleets. So
sure. That's what a Commodore is, I think.
Yeah, I mean that is exactly what a Commodore is. So it would make sense that they go big when it's time to go home. If you have been watching, and I can see that we lost all our viewers, and so I understand. And that's great. Look, people have lives. We'll
come back and finish later.
We're coming up on 2 hours here, Joe. But I want a little bit of a reward and a little bit of a celebration right now. So here is a little video that I actually made for our good friend Flobo Boyce.
Oh, great!
When we were going through early episodes of Star Trek, he and I. So I'd like to now share this with Joe primarily, but also the people at home.
Oh my!
It's a little video I made called Pasha Yar Bossa Nova. Denise Crosby, ladies and gentlemen, of the famous Crosby family, also famous for having posed in Playboy magazine. I didn't use any of those photos.
I have, I admit.
Super beautiful. Did I just do her tummy over and over again? That sounds like something I would do.
Well, you'd have a lot more to work with in terms of the sexy stuff.
But yeah, I'm just gonna say, hey, jumps her. This is all I did. Was just her stills. What did I do here? What's that? Oh, I guess I just got tired at the end. I just stopped putting images. Yeah, that's classic me right there.
Man, talk about tidbits.
If you ever wonder, why do those two old guys love Tasha Yar so much? That's why.
Well, since this was the first regular hour episode of TNG,
yeah,
it was definitely a thing. Okay, if we have any doubts, we're going to stick around for a while, see if we can get more of this.
I mean, it was really funny because at the time I was like, oh God, why do they have this little girl yelling and pounding her fist on things? It does not say security officer to me or security chief, but I really got used to her, especially years later when I was going back and watching all the Next Generation again. But at the time I remember thinking, oh, this cheesecake's ridiculous.
Well, you know what? And the other thing that's significant about this is that in terms of early Data character development, he had already achieved by episode 2 what we all strive for, and that was being fully functional.
I think you're right. I think one of the big reasons why Data was legendary was that so early on he was like, oh yeah, toughest woman on the ship. Oh yeah, she and I had a real good time together.
Well, and as it turned out, I mean, created a character path for Data that would last for decades.
That's just one of those great crushes, one of those great space crushes. He wasn't capable of full emotions, but he did have this connection with her, and she did with him, and that was actually sweet from her, point of view as well.
Well, there was a moment in her last episode with Armas where at the beginning, I forget, they were talking about playing Parisi squares, I think, and Worf said, "Oh, you would have easily defeated them." And Tasha gives Worf a little up and down with her look, and she said later on that if there had been just more moments like that, she wouldn't have left the show.
Right.
She was just becoming the Uhura of TNG, hailing frequencies open.
Yeah, there is a moment in TNG where you can measure where they start, Dr. Crusher or Tasha Yar, they start doing the same thing over and over. Right. It's what they're given. They're not given enough to do. And they were probably told, oh, this character is going to be very important, because that's what they tell you on a TV show. I've been told that a bunch of times. Oh, your character is super important. And then they just give you the same thing to do every week. And you start going, especially for Gates McFadden. Look, I only have so many years in this business. If you're just going to waste my time, I should go look for other work. And there's a lot of attitude from the fans because they don't quite understand that. But when you've worked in show business, your clock is ticking at all times. It's so funny. I put up a picture the other day of a movie that I was in because I was in Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag with Joe.
I did not know this.
Did I never tell you this?
If you did, I've forgotten.
I put up a photo, and a friend of mine was like, that movie was awesome. Did you see it? And I'm like, do you not recognize me on the left hand of the screen? That's me. No, I look so different from how I looked in that movie. You wouldn't know that was me. So, yeah, that's the bad thing about being an actor. You don't get to keep your looks forever.
Did you look? Was it around the time frame, give or take a couple of years, that you did Homeboys?
It was.
Okay, then I can look for that John Rubber.
Yes, yeah, that guy. I would put it up if I could put up photos, but unfortunately, that's one of the few things StreamYard can't do.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, it was a. I look a little different. I look a little different from how I look now. Most people wouldn't recognize it as me, but neither here nor there. Here we are. We're not going to make it to 2 hours on this one.
Well, we won't, but I'm going to give you a Tasha tidbit.
Oh,
in parting.
Yummy.
Skin of Evil, her last episode when she died,
right, killed by Armas,
was filmed prior to Symbiosis.
It wasn't it? She had one more episode after that one.
So of course they filmed Symbiosis prior, despite filming it after. But because it was filmed after, from her actor's standpoint, that was her last episode. So there was a scene in Symbiosis. So check it out. It's an easy spot if you know to look for it. It's her last scene in that episode. She's leaving the bridge, going off into another room, and she just waves wildly to the camera as she does it.
I never noticed that. That's so sarcastic. I love it. Talk about passive aggressive. I freaking love it. Because they killed her. They weren't doing that on Star Trek. They weren't just murdering regulars, but that was where they started. Oh man, Mr. Townsel,
Mr. Weber. I think we've said it all.
I think we've said it all. I didn't try to rush us through this one at all, and boy,
no reason to.
We're almost at 2 hours, so that's crazy. But I enjoyed spending my time with you. So,
well, same as we might as well get used to it, because I have a pretty good feeling. Another prediction: we're gonna have a lot to say next week and the week after.
I'm sure. Next week, by it being the penultimate episode of this entire Picard series, something bad's gonna happen. There's gonna be some bad stuff going down. And then it'll have to be solved in part 10 That's my final prediction for today.
Sounds like a good one.
If you want to explore the world of science fiction and speculative fiction and horror, joetownsel.com is a great place to go, because Joe Townsel is an incredible writer. He's created a universe that I can't recommend it enough. You've got to read his stuff. You've got to see what makes this great guy so great. Go to
Thank
Joe
you,
Townsel.
John, for your ongoing support. I in friendship, I love it, and I am very grateful. Just like David was grateful with Geordie.
One of those friendships, my friend.
That's right.
One of those friendships indeed. Thank you so much for being with us. That'll do it this week for Picardest. 2 p.m. if you're on the West Coast, and 5 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. And take it from me and Joe Townsel. We want you to live long and prosper. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Hello, up eating.